Hello, Birgir. Welcome to AviaDev Inside Europe podcast.
Thank you very much. Big pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. It's been great to talk to you last year when we had the chat also together with Bjoern from Norse Atlantic about opportunities for low-cost long haul at our different event we did together with Simple Flying, but now we are at the beginning of 2022. Lots of things are happening. We have a lot to cover in this interview, but before we dive into that, I want to ask you about your personal journey, because as far as I know, you don't have really an aviation background. So you joined the industry just when you started to work for Play. Is that correct?
More or less. Like they say, the best answer is to say yes and no. I have been doing a lot of things, but I have been in aviation on two occasions before Play. One was I was CEO of an Icelandic low-cost airline called Iceland Express from 2004 to 2006, something like that. Then I went and did other things, and then I came back into aviation in 2014 to 15, 16, something like that, when I was deputy CEO of WOW Air. So I have let's say some experience, some knowledge, but most of my kind of background is from general management and things. For example, before I came to Play, I was CEO of Iceland Post, the Icelandic Postal Service. Mm-hmm. Where I was basically taking that government-owned company and restructuring it and basically with a team of really good people, turning it from heavy losses into profit, modernizing, using digital solutions, and basically moving the company into the future. So I've been in a lot of strange kind of projects and businesses, but they're usually focused around either building a lot or consolidating or some kind of a change management or strategic kind of reviews. So let's say I come to Play with a mixed bag of tools. It's some aviation understanding and knowledge, and then also just general business and management.
Yeah, and I guess the understanding the change and that the change is the only constant was very useful also for your job at Play.
I mean, the thing is, it doesn't really matter what you do. At the end of the day, it's always about people. It's always about creating the right team, having the right strategy, and making sure that your team understands the objectives, creating the right corporate culture, investing in leadership thinking, these kind of things. This is relevant to all companies in all industries, and that's basically what I bring to the table here in this very interesting company.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's working great so far. So let's have a look on 2021. How has it been for Play? First 6 months, you carried more than 100,000 passengers on more than 1,000 flights. You announced, or you started to operate many destinations in Europe. You also announced 2 American destinations. You also published the average load factor, which was more than 53%, which in the press release was stated that it was satisfactory for you. So can you give us a brief summary? What are your thoughts on 2021? And in addition to the operational results, which are very positive and promising, also wanted to ask if also the financial results were in line with your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously 2021 was a crazy year for us, like everyone else. I mean, we had our first or inaugural flight in June, and we also listed on the Icelandic Nasdaq Stock Exchange in June also. So we basically, although the company had been created before and that there had been a lot of groundwork prepared, it was like last spring was the first kind of real moment where the company became real in that sense. So of those 6 months, like you point out, we managed to get 53% load in a very defined market. It's basically only to and from Iceland, where we were facing really heavy competition from very big and known players, and it was fantastic to see how much market share we were able to grab or create in that space of time, especially when it comes to the markets that were actually working, which are the Icelandic leisure markets. Let's say Spain markets, Tenerife, Alicante, Barcelona. On those flights, we had it would be completely satisfactory load factor in a normal year. I mean, it was like 85-90%. It was only the European city destinations that were tough because of various restrictions in those cities. So we actually come out from the year, with nearly 100% OTP, with all the digital kind of structure functioning, all the distribution of the network of the fares, and basically the company has been created and is functioning beautifully. So we are absolutely full of power and energy for the coming year. I mean, we are a startup company. Obviously, the financial performance is in line with the business case. We are only halfway to creating our business model, which will be only fully functional in the spring when we launch the US operation. So yeah, we lost money, but we always said we were going to lose money, but in fact we were down on revenue, but the costs were under plan. So we already showed the market that we are able to control the company in those crazy market environments that we saw. It was topsy-turvy, It was like you never knew what the next day was going to bring. So we think it starts really well, and we are full of optimism and kind of confidence for the coming year.
That's fantastic to hear. As you mentioned, 2022 will be a new chapter for Play. Of course, with opening the long-haul market, flights to the US, Boston and Baltimore has been already announced. And this week, very exciting for you, well, you also announced the third destination in the US, which is New York Stewart International Airport. So I guess it's very natural to go to New York, but the very natural question as well is, so why not JFK, why not Newark, why even not LaGuardia, but you decided for this, I have to say, a relatively unknown airport to potentially some European travelers. At least it was new for me. I've never been to the US, so maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm completely in love with this airport and this decision. And there are a number of factors behind it. Number one is that we are a low-cost carrier, and the way we create our position in the market is to make sure that we offer the lowest prices. And if you go into those airports that you mentioned, the costs are more or less the same for everyone. I mean, you are paying the same landing fees and the same basically operating cost on those airports. So if you want to win market share by offering the best price, you have to basically slash into your margins.
Let me stop you for a second. Apologies, but I guess they offer some kind of incentive schemes even at the other airports for first, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years.
Not so much if it's not a new route, and it's not only about the incentive scheme. It's also about
long term, of course.
Yeah, and also, for example, if you take an airport like Stewart, it's also you're quicker turning around. You're in and out of the airport. You don't have to taxi for a long time. You don't have to go into a holding pattern. You don't have to fly these S routes and all these things. So all in all, it's a much easier airport to operate in and out of. And going back to what I was saying is that I make a big distinction between, because it's so easy for us to say low cost. And usually when you say low cost, we are really talking about the price of the ticket. But really what we are talking about is two things: it's low cost and low fare. And it's so easy to come into a market and have low fare, but the cost is still high. And our position is that the only way we can offer low fares in a sustainable manner in the long term is that we keep our costs low. And the airport like Stewart is perfect for this. We are able to be really comfortable at a really low price point because the cost of operating in and out of the airport are lower. Okay, in the short term, it's also because of some incentives and stuff like that. But as everyone knows in the industry, that's really nickel and dimes compared to the actual operating cost of flying anywhere.
Very true.
So that's kind of icing on the cake, but that's not the real reason. So in order for us to be able to do like what we are doing now, we're offering now the lowest fares from Europe to New York. We only can do it if we do it in a really lower cost manner. We have a lower cost base. So that's kind of the actual business decision. Then when we began looking at the airport, because we are also just trying to be fresh and exploring options, this is a completely different market than the other airports. It is like an hour, 20 minutes away from Manhattan, but it's in the Hudson Valley. There's a lot of things going on in that area. For example, real estate prices have been going up 30%, 40% in the last 1 or 2 years because there's been so much of an emigration from New York City to the Hudson Valley. So there's a lot of things going on in the local economy, and there's no international flights out of the area. So we are now offering the first international connection since Norwegian. They did it actually a couple of years ago. And local attractions. There's a big Legoland. There's a big shopping mall there. I think biggest outlet mall in the world there. All kinds of things that when you begin to look at it, there's a different market. The catchment area for the airport, I completely fell in love with it. I think it's an absolute stroke of genius.
Yeah, all things coming together, and as you are saying, it will be not just a point-to-point market, New York to Iceland, but actually, can you already say to how many destinations in Europe will those flights be able to easily connect?
It's probably around 10. It's probably around 10. I don't have the exact list in my head, but it's places like Dublin, London, Copenhagen, Brussels, Berlin, Paris. These kind of places. There's a couple of places in Norway and Sweden, Trondheim and Stavanger, and those kind of Gothenburg, these kind of places. But this is the beauty of the model, is that we are mixing to and from Iceland and the hub and spoke network, and then we just have to gather people from all these destinations to one central place in Iceland in the middle of the ocean, and then fly them across the pond. And this is why I'm so adamant in saying that we cannot be classified as a long-haul, low-cost operator, because we are actually, this is a completely unique business model.
Yeah, it is indeed. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about something we already touched on, route development. So how the decisions are being made within play, what are your general expectations from the airports, and also at AviaDev we have always been very vocal about the necessity of partnerships across not just airports and airlines, but very strong partners are the tourism boards in the equation for flights to be a success. So what's your strategy in that?
Well, precisely what you say. I mean, and I think Stuart is a great example of that, where we go into an airport. We, of course, speak to the owners of the airport and the operational people, but we also have meetings with the local tourism board and the stakeholders in the area. And in that case, for example, it's a combined effort and shared interest to make sure that everyone, both sides of the market, knows the benefit. It's usually not only about them giving us money or something like that. It's more that we combine our efforts to create our shared kind of our common benefit, which in this case is to making sure that the area is known, that the local transportation is functioning, that there's money being spent, on online and stuff like that, and it can happen through various channels. It doesn't only have to be that someone just gives us money or gives the airline money. It's because airlines have to transfer people to a place where they want to do something, and so it's a chain. It's a value chain of things that need to function. and it's easier to do it when you fly into an established into an established destination. And in fact, that's the business model of low-cost airlines. Is that you're trying not to create new, or at least small low-cost airlines. You are basically trying to take pieces of cake that already exist because you can offer the same product at a lower price. So you let someone else do the development. But as you point out, this is a conversation and a joint effort between many different parties that have some interest in creating the business.
Yeah, every journey starts and ends at the airport, but nobody flies to a destination just to see the airport. Maybe a few geeks that are out there who are doing just that, but most of the let's say normal people are flying to visit the destinations, whatever the purpose of the visit is. So I'm just curious, very quickly, do you also have some sort of close cooperation with Icelandic tourism board, promoting
Of
Iceland?
course, absolutely, of course, and just to give these, like you point out, to give our passengers reason to travel, to go somewhere. And I think only that thinking is also quite relevant when you think also about the experience on board, because we as an industry tend to we are so focused on our own kind of product that we sometimes forget that people are not necessarily buying the product because they want to get somewhere else. So it doesn't have to be a life-changing experience to go on an aircraft. It just has to be smooth, simple, safe, and kind of hassle-free. And we have to recognize that people are going to a place because they want to basically get out of the aircraft and the airport in a timely and easy manner.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard an interesting comparison recently that people don't really need a drill; they need a hole in their wall. So they are not really buying the drill; they are buying the result. So that's something very similar. Okay, one more about the route development. So you mentioned already, and it's very natural that you are flying to big European airports such as Amsterdam, Charles de Gaulle, Madrid, Dublin. But you also are flying to some smaller points like Gothenburg, Salzburg, recently opened Alicante, and a few others. So at AviaDev, we are very much focused. We are the platform especially for European regional airports. So what's your strategy in that aspect? And can we expect some more regional points in Europe in your network either this year or 2023?
I mean, maybe to answer the last point first, I mean, we have a very defined fleet plan. We are adding, we will have 6 aircraft this year. We're going up to 10 next year, which are already designed and secured. So with more aircraft come more destinations, basically. And our network is quite interesting because it is a mixture of to and from leisure destinations to Iceland. And it's the hub and spoke via network between the US and Europe. And in between there are kind of destinations, like you say, with Salzburg, seasonal skiing destinations and stuff like that. So there are a number of variables that are considered. And for sure, with, like I said, with added capacity, we will have to find more places. And it is easier these days because there's so much data available. There's so much kind of digital data available that if you want to crunch it and you want to analyze, like when we decided to go to Gothenburg and those Norwegian places, we just see online that people are searching. People are searching for flights, for example, to the US from Stavanger in Norway. And there are no direct flights. Or at least very few, I think actually no. And so people always have to fly to London or Copenhagen or Amsterdam to go across the pond. So it's easy to kind of let it fit into our network. And we see on our sales numbers that it is working clearly. So if you let the data guide you, you land on places on the map that are maybe not obvious. And I always describe it that you have to think like an airline. An airline is a transportation company, and not think as a tour operator or a travel agency that always has to you always want to go to Hawaii or Bali or some kind of exotic and charming place. But an airline is a bus company. It's getting people. It's a mass transportation company. So it's a completely different way of thinking about it in reality. And we are trying to be guided by the data and basically have put a lot of both time and money into crunching that and creating our network, both when we fly in the week, to which destinations, how we can create the connection, city pairs and all that. I mean, I think this is the real art of the business. And this is actually the real cost control of the business also, because this is where cost is created. It's not always about how much you pay on salary and how much you pay for the aircraft per month or these kind of things. It's really how well you utilize the assets and flying, matching the capacity to the demand in the market, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick point on what you said, that airline is basically a bus company, even more if you are flying air buses like you are. So
yeah,
just a quick point on that. Now let's take a look on this year, 2022. Obviously, there is Omicron still among us, but in general, there is lots of positive, optimistic opinions we can hear from the different voices in the industry that finally this year should be the year of the real recovery with a massive pent-up demand. So what are your views on that? Are you also on this optimistic line, or you prefer to be a bit more cautious?
I mean, again, we just look at the data, and our data is showing precisely what it seems that most of at least the aviation industry in at least Europe is talking about, is that we see tremendous growth in sales. People seem to be booking a lot in the spring and into the summer, and a much stronger consumer confidence and kind of appetite for international travel than has been obviously prevalent in the last years. So we believe that when we begin to expand our network now in the spring to the US and add aircraft and add capacity, that we are doing it at precisely the right time in the market, at least the way things look now.
Mm-hmm. And what's been the feedback so far? Obviously, it's the news about New York Steward is still very fresh, but Baltimore and Boston has been announced a few months ago. So how do you see the mood within the traveling public? Are the bookings coming in line what you expected? And
even more. But the answer is, I mean, what to expect these days? What's the benchmark in COVID?
Fair point,
I mean, we launched Boston and Baltimore before Christmas. It takes time to kind of get into all the search engines and all that stuff, but it's performing really well, and we are seeing destinations like I referred to before that we were having a little bit of a problem with. For example, Paris. That has now become one of our biggest sellers because of the via link between those places, and I know all the KPIs and all the meters that we have point towards that there's a gap in the market, and in fact this has been done before. I mean, WOW did it before, and in fact when I was at WOW in 2014, I think we launched also Boston and Baltimore. And it also performed really well from the beginning. So I think it's a proven concept and a proven market. And like I said earlier, we are quite confident.
Great. And last, I need to ask you this question, which is very, very hot in the whole industry now, and it's the fuel price, which obviously the oil is almost more expensive than ever before, or it's very, very, very expensive. So how is your strategy on that? Are you using some kind of hedging, or how do you play with the oil?
Well, if I knew what the oil price how it would develop, my problem would be which private jet to use tonight, for myself, But, it hasn't hurt us that much now because we have been flying a relatively light schedule. Also, another fact is that people are booking shorter in advance. The booking curve is kind of quite short, at least in our markets. It's only like 60, 80 days now. So it's easier to price the price of oil into the ticket because you can see it in that short into the future.
Yeah.
And so we haven't taken the step to hedge or do anything like that. We are actively monitoring it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do it in the future. But currently, the fluctuations are simply too much, and our need is that not so much, and the capacity is so unsure, like you say, and what to do if some new variant comes, and do you want to be locked in or these kind of things. So we have the benefit of not being a heavy user, so we can actually, wait a little bit and see what happens. And it seems to me that most forward-looking trends and forward curves seem to be able to, or seem to be forecasting that fuel price will go down in the summer. So it kind of doesn't make sense to hedge on at least the current market price. So we are kind of waiting and seeing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely wish you all the best. Thanks a lot for your time today. Really appreciate, always great talking to you, to hear your insights. I wish you all the best with all the US expansion and all other actions that you are planning for 2022. And last question, which I always ask at the very end before we say goodbye: what do you love the most about aviation?
I love the speed. I love the kind of, it's ever changing, and you come into work in the morning and the job is not the same as the one you left the evening before. So it's so fast moving.
Okay, fantastic. Birgir, thanks again. All the best.
My pleasure. Thank you.